I mean, to start, I have to say that I feel like I'm part of the last generation that grew up learning how to play music acoustically, learning how to play in ensembles with other musicians without computers or sequencers or drum machines. I cut my teeth on jazz in acoustic ensembles. That was how I learned to play, and that's what I did at the start. And in my 20s, hooking up with Pat Metheny, we were both coming from that background, but we felt obligated to try to stretch our vocabulary, try to deal with the cultural environment of the time, and so we were very interested in combining acoustic and electric sounds, which is actually something I think we've been most successful at doing. It's just that the electronic component has gotten a lot more play, so people tend to think of that band as an electric band rather than a combination of acoustic and electric. We think of it more as that combination. So playing all acoustically was for me more just giving more emphasis to the acoustic side. I've always played acoustic piano. All my solos on record, in concert, have always been on acoustic piano. It's not an instrument that's totally foreign to me. It's just that I've had to split up my time and sometimes my hands, one hand on the synth and one hand on the piano, so I've not been able to give it my full attention. So that, coupled with the fact that you're right, these tunes did lend themselves very much to acoustic treatments, and the main reason they hadn't been recorded until now is that they didn't fit into the concepts of the albums I had done, either with Pat or on my own. So I had this backlog of material that really cried out for acoustic treatments, and I was finally ready to do a record just acoustically, so it was a good combination.
The tunes are not... I mean, it's interesting because when I heard them, I thought of a number of composers who are working not with traditional forms, but more with a mood or a way of writing for their own voice. I think of Schofield, Jane Ira Bloom, and the tunes that she writes for her, they're really for her saxophone. They're not hummable tunes in the sense that you're writing for a huge bunch of people to start picking them up and playing them. I really felt like you were expressing yourself or that particular trio. And it seems to be something that people are doing more and more. Is that a fair representation of what you did?
Well, I think it's a very fair representation. I also hope it's a trend that people are going to do that more and more. I think for a while, making a quote-unquote standards record acoustically was kind of a fad, so that there was this kind of assumption in the late 80s that acoustic meant old, acoustic meant standards, acoustic meant non-original. And prior to that, there was no such connection, at least in the musicians' minds. I remember some of the fabulous records that Keith Jarrett made with Belonging. Just, really interesting acoustic music that was brand new, very challenging, very much, compositional in nature, and vehicles for great modern acoustic players, and I'd always admired that approach. I thought that while a lot of jazz was kind of floundering in a fusion kind of mess in the mid-'70s, Keith had, this very fresh-sounding group that was making some interesting music. So I was more inspired by that notion that you can take an acoustic ensemble and still challenge yourself, still come up with new music, still come up with something that's a vehicle for a modern way of playing, and with full respect to the tradition, but without any kind of self-conscious parodying of it.
But of course, his work in that vein was before the sort of new religion of proving that you could play in the tradition, which now a lot of the young players, I guess after fusion there was a real reaction and a swing back the other way, not only to playing acoustically, but to playing maybe some of the underplayed book, paying homage to under-recognized musicians. And so there really began to be a great trough into which people jumped or fell or were pushed, of having their tribute to Kenny Dorham or their tribute to Sonny Stitt or whatever, that it was that kind of looking backwards or moving backwards.
It's a very astute assessment, and I think it's unfortunate. I don't feel that musicians of that caliber need to prove anything. It's unfortunate if they feel they do, or it's unfortunate if critics are implying that they do. Somebody like Herbie Hancock, I think, has already more than proven that he's done the hippest bop or post-bop playing around. There's just absolutely no need for any more proof from players at that level. And I think it's a kind of trap for younger players to feel that they have to prove something, because then the actual goals of making interesting music kind of take a back seat. Mm-hmm. So I hope we can get more on a kind of rational, get more into a rational place with the whole issue of standards and the tradition and everything. And I think if people are a little more aware as listeners, they're not going to need to be hit over the head with an old-fashioned sound or an old tune to recognize that someone has some understanding of the tradition. Mm-hmm. I think it's a kind of simplistic notion that we have to require a player to play an old tune in an old way to be able to say, yes, that person understands the tradition.